dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 Podcast, the Monday show about Fort Worth. All the politics, economics, culture updates that you need to know as a Fort Worthian or local North Texan. What's up, Jimmy? How you doing?
I am good. Big thanks to Michael Crane last week for his interview coming on the podcast. A lot of great insight around what will be coming up after the break for city council. So if you haven't given that a listen, make sure you do. Did you have a good 4th of July weekend?
Hey, I was at a wedding in North Dakota.
Ooh. Is it colder there than it is here?
Yes, but it felt like a QAnon social, but you know, it's okay. We're alive and well. So, but did you do the fireworks at Panther City Pavilion? Were you a part of that? That just seemed like chaos in the first place. Before it actually turned into chaos, which is our first short story. For those new listeners, maybe who came across from the Michael Crane world, who knows where you came from, we do 3 short stories, then 1 big story. And so our first story is the July 4th fireworks, but tell me about what your July 4th firework plan was before we dive into the story.
Yeah, we weren't doing anything. We were just hanging out at home. And, like, I get the idea of cities and municipalities putting on their own, like, fireworks show, potentially as, like, a diversion from people lighting their own fireworks off at home, which, like, it doesn't seem like it affects the number of people lighting off their own fireworks. But just in the state of the drought and the burn ban, I feel like we probably should have called this one off before we even started.
Yeah, so on Monday night, for those of you who may not be aware as well, because you did not go to Panther Island Pavilion, there were, on Monday night, Fort Worth did its city fireworks show, which is one of the biggest in North Texas. However, during the show, things caught on fire. The grass caught on fire, and it got awkward because there was video of the fire and it growing and it kind of going out of control and people not sure what to do. But it's because they were focused on protecting the remaining 1,000 fireworks from shells from catching on fire. So I thought that was crazy. And kind of going to your point about does this prevent people from shooting off their own fireworks? Fort Worth firefighters responded to more than 200 grass and brush fire calls during this year's July 4th holiday, which they said compared to last year was just 17 calls. That is crazy.
That is crazy.
I mean, that's exponential we talking about here, people. So
and like we obviously had like the hottest June on record. We haven't had significant rain in a long time.
10 days of 100 degrees weather.
I wonder, are the people who are calling firefighters because of a brush fire, are they being reprimanded for setting off fireworks? Like, I don't know what the penalty is. Obviously, it is
illegal. Yeah,
it is illegal. So, like, when would you think, maybe like a police car could go through the, logs of fire calls or been following the firefighters around? Because that seems like the fastest way to reprimand all of these calls.
Yeah, I feel that if it was you that was burning the fire, you wouldn't be the ones who called because you were like, I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So then that just made the fire even bigger. And they were saying how the person sounded really nonchalant. Oh, these are all under an acre. These 200 grass fires are under an acre. I'm like,
yeah, like they're small, but huge. Yeah.
Like,
that's like 4 or 5 house lots.
I know. I was like, yeah, it's all good, guys. It's just an acre. Is under an acre. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? That's a big fire. But anyways, hopefully if you had fireworks, if you had a celebration, it was good for you. I did know in South Dakota and Nebraska, where I was for the weekend, that fireworks they'd be popping them off all over the neighborhoods. Like there's definitely, it's free go there because I was trying to go to sleep, and I would say it was much louder and crazier throughout the nights there. So from a reference point of does it make a difference, I felt like in neighborhoods in South Dakota and Nebraska, it was louder than in Fort Worth. So it could make a difference, but also it could be just culturally and things like that, and just like, you know, smaller town, so people can go bigger with their fireworks. I don't know. But
yeah, well,
you want to hit to the second story?
Yeah, the second story, and this is a good news one for the most part. Tarrant County employees are going to get a $4,900 one-time bonus. The county's 4,615 full-time employees will receive that bonus as part of an employee retention plan. County commissioners voted 3-0 on Tuesday to spend $27 million, 26.5 of which come from the American Rescue Plan Act, for those payments. The county has lost over 1,600 employees to terminations, resignations, and retirements from March 2020 to mid-June 2022. It's a lot of people to lose over 2 years. So full-time employees will receive $1,000 on August 5th and September 23rd, and $2,900 on December 9th. Part-time employees will receive two $500 checks, but that timeline is still being determined.
Yeah, elected officials will not be eligible for payments. So tough on you there. And yeah, I mean, both Commissioner Roy Brooks and Judge Glenn Whitley had positive things about, I guess, the deservingness of these funds. And honestly, giving money directly to people in their hands is always a smart way to use money.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also a good sign from a macro perspective, not just a direct county employees. And heck, with 1,000 fireworks left over, maybe you can pack it in with some, fireworks for them to take home. Turn it into a real celebration, Be great. So,
but I mean, this is really awesome for county employees. Obviously, like, in general, dealing with government bureaucracy and government employees is sometimes kind of slow and frustrating. And so these employees take the brunt of a lot of garbage from people who are frustrated about whatever situation that the employee they're yelling at hasn't created themselves. So I think this is awesome for them. And I don't know if Fort Worth finds themselves sitting on some American Rescue Plan funds. This might be a nice blueprint for something for the city in the future.
Yeah, this also kind of leads to our third short story because it references a person again, and that is Judge Glenn Whitley. I don't know if it's because he's retired, he's on the back end, he's being nicer, because I'm wondering, does Judge Glenn Whitley say positive things about giving money to people, extra money? If you're a conservative Republican saying we have to have a conservative fiscal budget, who knows? It's $27 million we're talking about. So I don't know if a young Glenn Whitley would have looked at this compared to a retired 1 foot out the door Glenn Whitley. And then, but Glenn Whitley did not just do one good thing, supporting raising bonuses for Tarrant County employees. He said positive things responding to the obnoxious and horrific Texas Republican Party's platform. Jimmy, did you see that? What were your initial thoughts? What are you thinking there?
Yeah, we brought it up, mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, that during the June GOP convention in Houston, the platform was distributed in like a draft form. So on Wednesday, it was officially announced, and there are some interesting ideas in it. So in addition to calling homosexuality an abnormal lifestyle choice, the platform opposes same-sex marriage It asserts that Texas retains the right to secede, which isn't that interesting. Delegates voted to replace the property tax system, support school choice, and reject critical race theory and gun-free zones. The platform calls for medical freedom and the repeal of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Delegates also supported a law more comprehensive than the one in Florida that prohibits instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity. Brandon Rottinghouse, a University of Houston political science professor, calls this the gloves off moment for the Republican Party in Texas. Now, obviously, a party platform isn't necessarily representative of every single person in the party and all of their beliefs. But for the party platform to be representative of only the most radical versions of that group is a pretty significant moment.
Trump was obviously all about it, where he kind of said, quote, such courage, but that's what Texas is, Texas, with 3 exclamation points. They know that it's a country cannot survive without free and fair election. So to me, that's the scariest one. I mean, there's a lot of bad things on there, but
and that's the other big thing is that they reject that the 2020 election was legitimate.
Yeah, that's the one that you're now threatening democracy. Now, the story was well done by the Star-Telegram because they really, Eleanor Dearman really got Republican quotes from several different sources, and it really just kind of showed how, honestly, this is not the majority of Republicans, but it's kind of like when, I guess, Democrats not having a shot this whole time, and fundraising wise, like they're allowed to cut loose and be free because what are we going to do as Texans because Republicans win every time anyways, kind of thing. I thought it was interesting how they had merch there, Trump merch there, and it was like one big old, monster truck show where you get some merch.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly detailed and well researched and thought out article. A lot of people declined to comment, which is not super surprising. Like, they're probably looking at this and processing, like, how do I navigate being affiliated with this party, with this platform? And so people like Mayor Maddie Parker, who has distanced herself a little bit from the Republican Party recently, and a lot of Fort Worth officials that fall in that much more moderate range are probably trying to navigate, like, how do I come through this in a way that doesn't jeopardize my career, but also, like, still allows me to help my constituency.
Yeah, and so Glenn Whitley did say, like, this platform does not represent the majority of Texas Republicans, quote unquote. He said, the Texas Republicans I know and work with care about finding solutions to issues like the economy and public safety and are focused on individual rights and opportunity for all. Texans' true values set Texas apart and will continue to unless we allow this small group to pull us to the fringes and take our focus off of real leadership.
I think the struggle with that I have, and this goes for the Democratic Party also, is like, we had primaries. So, like, you're telling me that this doesn't reflect the majority of Texas Republicans. However, we had an opportunity to nominate Texas Republicans who don't reflect this platform, and that didn't happen. And yeah, there's the obvious piece to that is we have a pretty negative we have incredibly poor voter turnout, and so we're not actually putting candidates in front of us that reflect the majority of Texans. But there is a solution to this, and that's not nominating the furthest right people to be your candidate.
Yeah, no, we're definitely looking at like I think about it from like the perspective of is the Maddie, not just Maddie, just like the moderate Republicans, are they're to me they're stuck in a hard spot, especially when you look at Wyoming, for instance, where Liz Cheney is like. She probably, she has the stature. She has the Cheney name. She's going to be all right regardless what happens here. So she's come out to be seen as bravery. And honestly, like, I think there's a lot of like strategy in Wyoming around how Democrats are going to vote for Liz Cheney because in Wyoming, Democrats don't win. So like, go vote for the sensible Republican. And so when moderate Republicans do stand up, there is a crowd of people to go. However, in Texas, where we do have a dominant, like right now, like Beto O'Rourke, you can't really do that because, like, let's say, Democrats vote for the Liz Cheneys of Texas during the primaries, but then chooses between, moderate Republican and now Democrat. I just don't know how does the moderate Republicans like Glenn Whitley is showcasing way too late do it earlier and come out alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to that point, Rottinghouse, who I quoted earlier, says, the party platform is mostly used as a way to hold leaders accountable and try to expunge members who might not be fully on board with most of the platform. So, like, they literally this is put out there with the purpose, really the sole purpose, to make sure that if you are on the ballot as a Republican, that you reflect the majority of the things that are in the platform. So, I mean, like you said, a Democrat here hasn't won statewide office since 1994. I believe next week, the Texas Democrat Convention will be happening, and so we'll
see how they respond.
See their platform, see how they respond, and we'll have more to say about that after that comes out. But I think you have a good point that, like, even talking about like January 6th, the Republicans that have supported the committee and supported that the election was legitimate are the ones that are retiring. Yeah. Right? They're the ones that don't have to necessarily face the wrath of people who think you aren't aligned enough with their views.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the data is, the poll cert data is showing that Beto is in reach. I mean, he's in way more reach likelihood than Trump was for president. He is coming closer and closer, and you still got several months. And you can tell Abbott was playing low key on all this because he doesn't need to be. He needs to calm his personality down, and not be seen as the fringe. So it'll be interesting to see how does being quiet work for Abbott the next couple of months, while Beto really is moving forward. We also see that Abbott has like $20 million to Beto $7 million. So we'll see how he moves that around on ads on TV. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of things on news around how on the Beto's front, they're seeing the largest people coming out to knock on doors, the largest people to come out and do phone calls. So who knows? This is an interesting time for the country and for Texas mainly. But I'm assuming we're going to go through a couple rough years and be very close, like in the history books, that one time when we almost lost it all,
A couple might be an understatement.
Or if we don't lose it all. And, this is the last episode of the 817 podcast because everything our freedom of speech gets canceled.
Go into hiding.
So let's go ahead and hit to the big story, which the big story is a lot of you who listen to the 817 podcast, you're movers and shakers, you're doers, you're people who are on the ground, you're people who are seeing where the city is going, and if anything, you're projecting your own personal growth and love for the city with the potential of the city. And so economic development is big there, right? And that is, how do we get jobs? How do we fund businesses? How do we grow our economy? And so the economic development, what's exciting is I think this last year has really pedaled to the metal and put some more gas in the tank to really make Fort Worth a premier city. Now, so this big story is going to be about a couple different grants and programs out there that economic development is supporting and talking about, but we really want to spend time on the big story, talking about the strategy. Maybe 2 episodes ago, we talked about how the Economic Development Department is doing its first ever national marketing campaign, pitting $100,000, which is not much, but pitting a campaign to try to tell a story about Fort Worth nationally, and more is coming into that. So, Jimmy, do you want to jump us into the Full Strength Fort Worth campaign and what that looks like from the Dallas Innovates article?
Yeah, so the city of Fort Worth has launched a new framework, Full Strength Fort Worth, to bring economic vitality to every corner of the city. The comprehensive revitalization strategy prioritizes equity and preservation, celebrates diversity, and creates exciting communities where everyone can thrive. So, like EJ said, the city of Fort Worth wants to compete at full strength on an international stage for businesses, resources, and top talent. To do that, it needs to leverage the strength of all communities in the city, including ones that have traditionally been underserved and disinvested. Now the city has launched a new framework to bring economic vitality across the city. So the goal is nothing less than a new vision for the city, the announcement said, a vision of Fort Worth where all of its neighborhoods are celebrated as equitable drivers of economic change, allowing the city to compete at full strength. So, the areas of impact are focused along key commercial corridors within the central city that are in need of revitalization, including the preservation of historical and cultural assets, redevelopment of pre-existing sites, and business attraction and retention. And I think that this really goes hand in hand with a lot of what we have been seeing behind the scenes the last couple of years, whether it's a bunch of money coming into East Lancaster and like broadband coming into East Lancaster.
Yeah, you saw that? Like 10% of homes in East Lancaster do not have internet at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big step up for businesses. And then everything that is planned for the historic South Side, Evans and Rosedale, Stop 6, Como. There's a lot that has been going into these areas to try and help catch up. And so I think it's really cool to finally kind of see the vision behind all of the pieces that we've seen coming together over the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't know. And I don't know. Did you see that video by Economic Development? Their like new commercial on their itbeginsinfortworth.com kind of video. The video, what's cool about it, it shows different entrepreneurs, like the guy who runs the electric battery, he's in it. The Linear Lab CEO's in it. And it kind of highlights the different innovations that are going on. It shows the Health Science Center, but it also shows like the culture. All around, like a cool commercial. And, you know, I thought it was cool to see it out there. I wonder how they're going to leverage that in the media. But that's kind of a parallel thing that's going on with this. Like, I'm really interested when we talk to Robert Stearns, how does this all play together? Because now it seems like you have like the city of Fort Worth doing this like full strength Fort Worth with like this conscious equity piece. But then you have like this Fort Worth Begins campaign, which is really around like trying to help find companies to move here based off what's here. So I'm really going to be interested to see how it all comes together. But what's exciting is that a lot of this is also about supporting today's entrepreneurs in Fort Worth and supporting small business owners today.
Well, and this reminds me so much of when Ann Zeta was running for mayor, and she would tell us and believes that everyone deserves to live in a walkable community. And we've seen that with how in her time as city councilor for District 9, Bluebonnet Circle got its massive overhaul, and the near South Side and Main Street their Main Street pilot program became a much more walkable and accessible community. And that's what this feels like, is leveraging the assets that each neighborhood in the city has and figuring out how to turn it into a dynamic, walkable, accessible community. And that is something that I am all about and excited to see.
No, yeah, that you make a great point. Definitely based off the neighborhoods they're focusing on, and the full strength Fort Worth report thing was just very consciously written. It'd be interesting how it looks in implementation, but it was very well written. So what I want to do next is actually dive into a couple programs that are happening, and then I'm gonna basically read them off, Jimmy, and then get your take on them. You know, what you think about them. How you would look at that as an entrepreneur or someone who would try to do something here in the city. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right, so the first one I want to do, and by the way, in the description of the podcast, these links to apply or learn more will be in the description. The first thing we want to address is just an update on the CDFI program. If you remember, we had Christina Brooks, the Chief Diversity Officer of Fort Worth, and really just talking about the CDFI program, which is dedicated to serve low-income and underserved communities. The program has already given $7.3 million to Fort Worth residents since the start of January. What's popular about this is that it's really open-ended, and it's available for people to use in different ways. They showed the data points of how that $7.3 million was used today. I wanted to find that really quickly.
Well, of the 69 loans, 39 were mortgages, 19 consumer loans, and 11 were small business loans.
Yeah, so definitely home ownership is an important part to wealth and being able to make that happen. So it seems like people are using this directly for that piece. 19 consumer loans. I wonder what that looks like. You know, are we talking needing to buy?
Yeah, well,
a car?
One person quoted in the article, Tammy Ellis, knew that they were in a spot that would be difficult to receive a loan because they had worked in the lending industry. So they turned to CDFI-friendly Fort Worth, received a loan from On the Road Lending, and were able to get a car. I no longer have to deal with the anxiety of getting back and forth to my job. A very basic thing to be able to maintain a job,
especially in Texas, you know?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, Christina Brooks is Chief Equity Officer and Diversity and Inclusion Department Director of the city of Fort Worth. Yeah. And then you also had a couple people in here talking about business and how that talked. And I thought, shout out to Erica Ramos. I thought an eloquent quotes and just thought process of like, how do we think through of connecting small business owners to the opportunities of the city. I thought a couple of her quotes were good. So I mean, the director of the program says that he hopes to reach $20 million in financing by the end of the year and $250 million in 5 years. It said the program is on track for the goals. So again, if you missed that episode we had with Christina Brooks, go back and listen to it. Because if you feel like you're in a place where you need a CDFI loan, like it's open for anybody and for anything. Like there are endless possibilities of you getting connected with the funding that you need, whether it is for a personal thing like a car or a home, or if it's to start a small business. Yeah. So the money is out there, and this partnership program that Fort Worth has with CDFI is something that we should all be looking to leverage. Yeah, no, absolutely. So CDFI will be in the description. The next one we want to hit is Small Business Workforce Assistance Application. Opens July 11th at noon. Tarrant County Small Business Workforce Recovery Grant is designed to provide financial assistance to impacted small businesses whose workforce has been adversely affected by COVID-19 pandemic. Funds awarded will aid in workforce recovery, retention, recruitment, training, and development. For eligibility, to qualify, you must have been impacted, an impacted industry as defined by the U.S. Treasury and adopted by the Commissioner's Court. Must be physically located and operated in Tarrant County since January 1st, 2020. Must have had 50 or fewer employees as reported of quarter one. Owner or multiple businesses are only eligible to apply for one business. Grant amounts up to $27,500 for qualified nonprofits and for-profit businesses. Deadline to apply is August 31st, 2022 at 5 p.m. until the funds are depleted. Seems like a good chunk of change. $27,500 could go a long way for a lot of small businesses here.
Yeah, so it's about like $1,000 per employee that you have at your business. So basically any business is going to fall under the category of one in an industry that was affected by the pandemic. So it is a very simple, easy grant. It seems like it'll be an easy process to go through. So be on the lookout for that with the application opening July 11th at noon.
Yeah, and that means like if you got auntie, son, grandson, everybody working at the restaurant, they an employee. They got $1 from you. You just add it up. 1,000. Find 27 people. All right, beautiful people. All right, so the last one I wanted to hit, which I didn't know you saw this one, and it was a statewide one, but it was the $180 million to be given to Texas business owners and new grant program. Around $180 million funds will be administered to Texas business owners in form of grants as a part of the new Texas Travel Industry Recovery Grant Program. Federal dollars are now available to help boost the Lone Star State's travel industry, still dealing with the effects of coronavirus. In a statement Tuesday, Governor Greg Abbott and the Office of Economic Development and Tourism announced that the applications will open Wednesday, which was last week, for Texas Travel Industry Recovery Grant, which will administer $180 million in funds. The funds, which were received via the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, will be used to provide grants for the recovery of Texas businesses in tourism, travel, and the hospitality industry that were negatively impacted by COVID. Applicants in the following industries are eligible for a one-time grant of $20,000. Arts, entertainment, recreation, food services, drinking places, traveler accommodations, RV parks, and recreational camps. What I thought what was this interesting and why we would have maybe possibly ignored this one is because Governor Abbott's trying to put his name on it like Trump was trying to put his name on pandemic checks. And it was basically, a smooth move by him trying to remind everyone, like when you look at the marketing of it all, it's like it's coming out of the office of Abbott. So, but money is green, so that's another $20,000. So if you fall in those categories, then that's big. If you fall in those categories, you got $20,000 there. You can have the employee one as well, so that could be anywhere between $1,000 and $27,000 there as well. Then you also got CDFI loans. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. And I'm sure as we get to the fall, there's going to be more stuff like this as they have to start distributing that funds from the pandemic. So I think this is just the beginning. And that's why if you look at data, a recession or after a breakdown of the economy, some of our greatest companies come out of that, right? So maybe you are the next great thing that's going to come out of Fort Worth and use these opportunities to bet on your dreams. What is your take on this last one, Jimmy?
Yeah, again, it's like any chance to give small business owners the opportunity to recoup like any of what was lost over the last couple of years is great. And so, like Michael Crane said, like a lot of this money is a one-time thing. Like, we're not going to have another opportunity like the American Rescue Plan Act, hopefully in our lifetimes. Like, hopefully we don't have a situation where we need something like this again. And so if you or you know someone who falls into one of these categories, make sure that they are getting this information, because it will have a major impact on a lot of the small businesses across the city.
I know this is off the cuff, but what are some of your like maybe concerns or possible blind spots or considerations that you think we need to be thinking about as we promote Fort Worth at an international stage? Now that you're having a messaging campaign that seems relatively articulated, they've been working on that for a while. You're having these funds come out, and you're having all this stuff that Texas is known for, right? We're bringing back the World Cup in 2026. All this stuff. It seems we're positioned to do a lot of good stuff. You know, people talk about we're the fastest growing city. You know, our housing prices stay going up while maybe the rest of the country is going down. What are some of your thought process as we think about the branding, the story, the magic of what makes Fort Worth, as we plan to get bigger, as Tarrant County is expecting 3 million people by 2045? Or did I say 10 million people by 2045? I'll look that up while you give us your description.
I think that what we started this discussion with, like, has to catch up quickly. Like, we have to make this a city that is easy to live in for everyone and in every community. And so creating that walkability, creating that sustainability, creating that equity is going to go a long way in giving Fort Worth the foundation that it needs to support trying to bring people in internationally. Because the majority of the world where these companies are coming from are not as reliant on cars as Texas is, and are potentially used to a much different culture than what Texas offers, or maybe the stereotype of what Texas has offered in the past. And so I think that playing catch up and like making Fort Worth a city that someone could easily live in without a car, or still maintaining its like status as an affordable place to live, is going to go a long way towards attracting these companies here.
No, that makes sense. And so the answer was 3 million growth in population. Today it's at 2.1. Doesn't sound as dramatic. Now that you think about 2045, me and you would be like in our 50s. I'd be 55 or something like that. No, but what you're saying is correct. I think like that inclusive and the small cities and how does this complement, I mean, the towns, and making for everyone feel included and inclusive, and that they have their part of Fort Worth, but also what does that integrate at scale with all these big companies that will also come to Fort Worth. I think one of my biggest concerns too is how like, are we doing a good enough job to understand the growth is a lot of the Hispanic population? And are we actually masters or have skills at communicating and connecting with the Hispanic population? So I think how do we do that will be interesting. Because yeah, I mean, to me, when I look at the people who are buying homes in our area, it's Hispanic families.
Yeah.
And so, or even building homes, you know, it's Hispanic families. So I think that's the part that I think, like, obviously we have a lot of history with Black success and the need to support our Black entrepreneurs. And then we have the established kind of Fort Worth. But yeah, I think that's, to me, is like, who's speaking for those people when city council has Carlos Flores, but I don't know if that's enough in the sense of maybe champion it. So that's probably my thing.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that also brings up to me is schools. Like, if we are going to continue underinvesting in public education and putting that on the back burner, like, if companies are trying to move here and bring employees here, and employees are looking at this and saying, no, like, I'm not going to subject my kids to what they consider a worse education compared to what they're being offered now, like, that's going to catch up to Texas eventually.
Yeah. And I saw a crazy stat in The Economist. I got to send you that article about the power of the Asian vote. And it was talking about how for every one vote for Trump in the presidential election, 2 for Biden from the Asian population. But it was crazy. Indian, Asian American, 75% have a college degree, a bachelor's degree, 75% compared to it's like 38% for overall America.
Yeah.
So it's crazy when I think about like what Plano and Frisco and all these places look like. These Asian hubs, which also leads to these high jobs.
Coppell and Irving.
Yeah. Like, to get them to come to Fort Worth, schooling and education is clear a part of their culture and anthem.
Yeah.
And what do we offer here in Fort Worth? Is important. So, all in all, good points.
Yeah. You ready to move into wins and losses?
Let's make it happen.
I'll start with my loss. So this past week, the Tarrant Appraisal District Board had a meeting that a lot of people wanted to say something at, and the appraisal board closed their doors to members of the media. Basically, people were going in trying to voice their opinion and being told that they couldn't come in. They had to wait in line. And so dozens and dozens of people stuck waiting outside in the Texas heat to get their say, if they even ended up getting their say at this meeting. Thursday's controversy started because of a lawyer who has been helping people protest their appraisals free of charge for years, and somebody complained about it because they were helping people. All in all around, it's just one of those,
because there's a big money scheme. We all get the mail of, hey, let me help you get your taxes down.
Yeah.
They get a cut. But I think all real estate agents should have done what this guy did. Like, to me, it's a way to get business. It's a way to, it doesn't take a lot of time. You can streamline it. It gets your foot in the door. I think this is a smart move. And I think it's crazy that this many people showed out for this, because now I'm saying, like, if you want to talk about the pressing issue that Beto needs to harp on, or anyone running for office, it sounds like these sky-high property taxes.
Yeah. So the boardroom they're in had seating for only 14 members of the public. By 8:45 a.m., a line of people wanting to attend wrapped around the entire district's office. I don't know if there's a way to have known that this many people were going to show up. There might have been. Like, this guy's clearly helped a lot of people, and a lot of people have issue with their property taxes. So find a plan better for a bigger room. Like, it
sounds like this guy has a lot of influence too. Like, he needs to get active as a leader, or share comments. Maybe he runs for office or endorses someone running for office who he believes is going to be property tax forward for the Tarrant County, Fort Worth people.
Yeah. So my loss from this is just that government officials were holding a meeting that they were actively keeping the public and media out of, which is, to me, a major no-no.
Yeah. Well, this goes on to people who are not as nice as this guy offering free tax support. I'm going to hand out a loss to an organization that's used to L's, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. They had announced a partnership with Black Rifle Coffee, which we've talked a lot about when we talked about the HEB story and how HEB was going to be an alliance, but their neighbors was going to be Black Rifle Coffee, which basically is this coffee company that is trying to become this public traded monster that has this old Army vet or this Army vet person run it, and all the names of their coffee is after guns. But somehow these people got the Cowboys as like the coffee sponsor for the Dallas Cowboys, like Bud Light is or whatever their beer is. So I think that's crazy that these guys got it. But then like the Dallas Cowboys like post and celebrate this like around 4th of July after Highland Park just happened in Illinois.
Yeah.
And this is like one time ever where Jerry Jones actually pulled a sponsor, or he at least pulled the post down finally. His team did after a couple of hours. But I'm not sure where it is, but it's just a big loss. And to me, it just shows the good old boys club of like capitalism in America, and how I don't know how you thought this was a good idea, even if shootings didn't happen.
Yeah, these guys are actively being investigated for securities fraud. And you're like, oh, yeah, like we'll make you our coffee sponsor. Like, what? Come on. There's got to be like some vetting of this company that continues to just be a get-rich-quick scheme. Yeah, Dallas Cowboys used to taking L's, taking another one.
What is your win?
My win, and this is something I was really excited to see, front page above the fold on the 4th of July, highlighting Mia Moss and Black Coffee, as well as Casa Azul, which is over in the north side. I just thought it was really cool to highlight two coffee businesses owned by minorities who are creating value in their communities and delivering a product that has not been as accessible to these communities as it has been to people living in the near south side and downtown. I mean, we talk about Black Coffee a lot because it's over in our neighborhood, but Casa Azul, I stop by at least once a week after we drop Brooke off at work. They have a kid-sized table. My kid orders the cookie with sprinkles, and we go sit at the kids' table for a little while. And it is probably like the most diverse cross-section of people that I like step into every single week. Every week there are at least 3 different minority groups that are in Casa Azul when I go in there. And so it's, to me, a really cool melting pot of the city that is providing value for their community. And I thought it was really encouraging to see this highlighted on the 4th of July front page above the fold in the Star Telegram.
Yeah, and these are probably my 2 go-tos as well. If I'm not meeting anyone in the east side, the Black Coffee, I'm going. I got to meet someone in the north side. Casa Azul is the spot. What I think, what I learned from them as entrepreneurs, 2 things that I think are very valuable is find your different, right? Find your different. And what I mean there is like, I think what Casa Azul does really well is this aspiration to provide free coffee at times for people who want a cup of coffee. And they do that by creating partnerships with companies who will donate for coffee for like 4 hours, 2 hours. They've done banks, and you know, one of the owners works for the Hispanic Business Chamber. So they're leveraging that asset and that unique moat, right? And I think, and then when you look at Black Coffee and their involvement in the east side, in the community, from the churches they go to, from the historical, generational family impact in that community that they come from, the multiple other businesses that they run, it just seems to me like if you want to run a successful coffee shop or small business, there has to be that uniqueness like that allows you to do something different that others might not be able to do because of your upbringing, your background, your perspective, which is why we need more diverse entrepreneurs investing in diverse areas that can see these gaps that you can't really see on an Excel document that's just giving you numbers.
Yeah.
So kudos, for sure. Kudos.
Yeah, and I mean, Casa Azul is probably the most unique coffee menu in the city, and well priced. They're the only ones that have a Cubano on the menu, which is an espresso pulled with cane sugar. And I mean, Joseph, one of the co-owners, one of the nicest people that I've ever interacted with. And one quote that he had that I really appreciated was, I feel like there's probably a misconception that coffee is like a luxury that only certain demographics enjoy. That quote really brings out the fact that millennials have been told for the past decade that they don't own a home because they spend too much on coffee. Like, that is something that has been drilled into a generation of people by the older generation, that coffee is a luxury that you shouldn't get to enjoy. And this is obviously more specific to the North Side, and he specifically references people that would just get their coffee at QT. But coffee doesn't have to be a luxury. It is something that can and should be enjoyed by everyone. And so, like you said, both of them are finding value in their unique perspective that they have because this is their community that they're serving.
Yeah, 100%. My win is going to go to the church community, who has responded positively to the responses of Steadfast Baptist Preacher. If you remember the appalling comments about shooting gays and pitting up against a wall and making sure we get rid of them, a lot of Tarrant County churches have commented saying this is not what being a Christian's all about. These people aren't a church, it's a cult. This is not what we represent. And most of these responses were wishy-washy and like, okay, yeah, but you won't say that you welcome LGBTQ plus people into your church. But there was a couple. One, Celebration Community Church, which says it's the first LGBTQ affirming church in Fort Worth. So shout out to you guys for, to me, modernizing religion and making people realize that if you're going to be around and you're going to be providing community to people, you got to be able to be more open. And so that's just a win to me, especially because we constantly tag church to the GOP, the evangelical crazies. And so I want to do justice and make sure I acknowledge the good spaces that are trying to use their church in positive ways.
Yeah, I think that's a great word to end on. Thanks, everyone, for listening this week. If you haven't, make sure you go back and listen to our episode with Michael Crane.
Great interview.
And we hope you can survive this 105, 106 degree weather that we've got coming.
Take care, people.
Swipe, dopamine, swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life, Dopamine swipe.